Howdy, this is Lemmy with RevZilla TV, here to talk to you today about how to install Vance Hines Fuelpak 3 on your Harley. So for those of you who are just getting acquainted with the FP3, this is some space-age Jetson right here. This thing plugs in your bike and allows you to wirelessly control the performance of your motorcycle using your tablet or smartphone. Installation on this thing is an absolute cakewalk, one beard. You're going to see how easy this is as we go through the process today. Now you should be aware these things are made for CAN bus Harleys, late model stuff exclusively. If you're not sure if your bike is equipped with CAN bus, use our bike finder, put your bike information in there, and we're going to show you the stuff that's going to fit your motorcycle, no questions asked. Now I recognize some of you watching this video may not have your FP3 yet and you're trying to garner a little more information. After we dropped our rather informative, if you ask me, video on the product itself, we had some recurring questions from folks, so I want to head a few of them off at the pass to try and give some of you some information and maybe save you a call to one of our gear geeks or from writing an email to us. One of the most popular questions we got was, how many bikes can I use this on? It's got kind of a fuzzy answer. So as far as the actual performance and tuning aspect of the FP3, this thing marries up to one VIN. So once you get this plugged into your bike and you've mapped your bike, that FP3 and that bike are now married forevermore. However, you can use it to clear and check DTCs, diagnostic trouble codes, on a variety of motorcycles. So if you're on the road with a buddy and his bike throws a check engine light, you can throw your FP3 onto his bike in order to get an idea of what might be going wrong with that particular motorcycle. One of the other questions we got was, does this thing have to stay on the bike? Great question. Again, fuzzy answer. If you want to do just a quick flash tune and get riding, yes, you can remove it from your motorcycle. However, in order to take advantage of all of the benefits and features that the FP3 offers, you do want to leave it on your motorcycle. You're going to use that for things like auto tuning, or if you want to use their GUI, their graphical user interface that gives you a lot of information about what's going on with your bike, well beyond your factory gauge package. The other cool thing that's really nifty about the FP3 is that you can go ahead and download their app if you're running an Android or an iOS device, and you can try before you buy. They have a demo mode. The demo mode is going to allow you to act as though this thing is hooked up to a motorcycle. You can see the graphical user interface. You can actually see some of the bikes and maps they've got things set up for. Vance Hines makes it really easy for you to act as though you have this on your bike. Most people, I think, are going to realize how simple and intuitive this is, but if you're not quite sure, download the app. You've got no skin in the game, you've got no money to do so, and you can figure out whether or not this is something you want to get into. So at this point, realistically, we have to start our physical installation of the FP3. It's very, very simple. Like I said earlier, this is one beard. It's cake to get one of these onto your motorcycle. So you're going to grab your FP3, and the first thing all of you need to do is identify where your data link connector is. Harley calls this the DLC sometimes. Now on most bikes, you're going to find it located underneath your left side cover. Those of you with Softails, you'll find your data link connector underneath your seat. Now you'll know you'll have the right thing because it's got a rubber plug in it like you can see right here. Pop that rubber plug out. Another way you can identify this plug to make sure you have the correct one is to count the pins inside there. This is a 6-pin connector. We know we have the right plug here. So at this point we're simply going to plug in the FP3 as you can see here. And our physical installation is more or less complete. The one thing you will need to consider is if you do want to take advantage again of that auto tune function, or you do want to leave this on there so you can use your phone on your bars to check out your gauges, you'll want to permanently mount this somewhere safely on your bike. On this Sportster I'm working on right now, a good spot to do that would be right behind that rear jug. This is a good mounting point. You'll find something on just about every single motorcycle out there. Now what we need to do is turn the ignition key to the key on, engine off position. So basically get the ignition fired up on this thing, but don't actually get the bike running. After that, we're going to go ahead and start tuning. So as a quick recap, our FP3 is installed. We have the key on, but the engine turned off. Now it's time for the Star Wars stuff. The first thing we actually need to do here, believe it or not, has nothing to do with the FP3 itself. We need to set up the device and make sure that this is willing to talk to the FP3. So what we're going to do is go to Settings, and we're going to head to the Bluetooth options. We're just going to turn Bluetooth on and make sure this thing's actually set to roll and ready to talk to FP3. Now you're going to notice the device that pops up actually says VIN, and then it'll give you 6 digits. Those 6 digits are actually the last 6 digits of your VIN number, and it's the VIN that this thing is actually going to pair to permanently for its duration. As you can see here, we're set to rock and roll, so from here, we're going to go into the FP3 app itself. We open that up, and I think a lot of you are going to run into this exact scenario we're going to run into here. It's going to talk to you about a firmware update. Vance Hines actually won't let you get into the app without making sure you have the latest firmware on your device. The reason they're doing that is to make sure that this thing is going to run its very best. What they've done is identified problems, whether major or minor, and they're making sure that they're all handled before you get into your tuning process to make sure that everything's going to go smoothly for you. So what we're going to do is actually install this puppy, and as you can see, this is going to take just a little bit of time. That's not a big deal though. Me and old granddad are going to get together for a little bit of quality time. Our producer says I need to stop drinking at work. I told him he was confused. As you can see here, our firmware update is all done. We're ready to rock and roll here. It's set to fly, so we're going to hit OK here. It's going to give us a little bit of info about what just happened. We're going to back out of there, and now we're in the FP3 app. The first thing most of you guys are going to do is probably look up a map. I'm imagining most of the people considering this have probably thrown an exhaust and possibly an air cleaner on their bike, and this is the impetus for having purchased the FP3. So what we can do first is go to the map lookup. Now the fellow who owns this bike is planning on putting a set of Vance Hines short shot staggereds on there. He's also going to put on a VO2 naked air cleaner. So we're going to set his map up specifically for those pieces of equipment. So the first thing we're going to do is select the exhaust manufacturer, which is Vance Hines. We're going to find his exhaust. Oh, there's our short shot staggered, and select it. From there, it's going to ask you some questions about the baffle. Now I think this fellow is probably going to run a standard baffle, so we're going to go ahead and select that. And then it's going to ask us about the bike itself. This is a 48, and it does have a 1200cc motor like all the 48s do, so we're going to select that. As soon as we do that, it's going to give us sort of a rundown of all the choices we've made. We can review them and then skip to the next stage, which involves actually putting this map into this motorcycle. We're going to tell it to program the map, and then it's going to ask us to turn the bike on and off just a few times. When we come back, you're going to see that this map is in the bike, and we'll be ready to ride. As you can see now, the bike is actually programmed. We're going to hit done. Now for those of you who wanted to simply plug this thing in and fly, you can do so as of right now. It's safe to disconnect the FP3, you can get on your bike, and it's now mapped for that exhaust and high flow air cleaner. It's that easy to get your bike running well with simply a smartphone or a tablet. Isn't this cool? So those of you who want to get a little bit deeper into things, we have a variety of menus we can get to. Let me show you some of the cool parts that Vance Hines has cooked right into this FP3. So the first thing you're going to notice on your menu is the Autotune feature. Autotune is kind of cool. When we open this up, it's going to give you this graph that you can see here. It's going to have us pick a map. Now, one of the things you're going to notice here is this zero map. We only put in one map. The zero map is super duper nifty. What this does is saves the factory map. So even if you start tuning and things go terribly awry, you can always come back to your factory map. You don't have to worry about that. It can also be beneficial for those of you who are a little concerned that your dealer's not going to help you in a warranty scenario. You can always load the factory map back in, and then you're still at your factory stock settings. So because we're going to be working with the map we just loaded, it's in the 1 position, we're going to choose that, and then we're going to go ahead and tell this thing that we want to flash it. Now you can see this graph here, and what this has is various RPMs as well as throttle position cubes. What it's going to do is basically chop up both your RPM range as well as your throttle position, how deep you're into the throttle, how much you're getting on that bike, and it's going to learn things about your bike and how you're riding. So you'll notice as you ride with the Autotune, you're going to see the squares turn colors. An orange color means that this thing is still learning about that area of your either throttle position or your RPMs. Whereas a green square means that it's already learned that and it's moved on to a different cell of things. Now Vance Hines says you can get a map as fast as 25 minutes, but they recommend you run at least a tank of fuel through. Now what you can do is auto-tune your map, save it, and then you can auto-tune again. You can keep auto-tuning a map to adjust it absolutely perfectly to your motorcycle. That's one of the cool parts of FP3. So had we ridden this bike around and allowed the FP3 to figure out exactly what this particular motorcycle wanted, we would go ahead and program this thing in, tell it we were done, and we would move on from there. So if we continue on here, we could read trouble codes. Now this bike doesn't have any, so we're not going to see anything come up here, but again, this would be the part where if you had, say, plugged into either your bike or a buddy's bike, you're going to see a DTC come in. Oh, we actually do have a little something here. As you can see here, we have a turn signal issue. The guy who owns this bike actually chopped the turn signals on this, and the CAN bus system is smart enough to know that there's been a change in the electrical load. That's why you can see here that there is something going on with the turn signals. The FP3 is super, super intelligent and makes it very easy for you to access all the stuff that your bike already can do. Let's clear those trouble codes. Fantastic. Now you'll notice this thing has absolutely no codes and we're all done. Be careful when you're doing this, especially if you're not so great at diagnosing a problem. What you can do here is actually clear out valuable information that a technician may need in order to repair your motorcycle correctly. However, if you're familiar with what you're doing and you know what's going on with your motorcycle, it's perfectly fine to clear them, and you can do it instead of taking it to a dealer or perhaps an indie shop to have them do it for you. So let's head back out to the menu and look at some of the other stuff this thing will do. We can look at sensor data. So one of the cool things about this is that GUI I was talking about earlier, the graphical user interface. This is a super pretty setup. Now most of you aren't going to use this on a tablet, you're going to be looking at it on a phone, but still you can customize this. For instance, the way this is set up currently, we can see both throttle position sensor, where you are in the throttle. You can also see here battery voltage. You can see a gear position selector. This thing will actually tell you what gear you're in. If that's something you ever wanted to add to your bike, it's very easy with this app. You can see here too, we also have temperature as well as miles per hour. You have the option of customizing this too, and you can look at some pretty nifty things. Speed, throttle position sensor, manifold absolute pressure, and they even have fuel economy mode here too. Those of you on larger bikes who are doing big miles, you may want to wind up using this. I know I certainly have a habit of getting on the highway, and if I don't have my cruise control set, I wind up going faster and faster until I'm passing absolutely everything around me, and I'm flying through fuel. This will keep that from happening. So the final piece of this thing that's really, really awesome is let's pretend you got yourself in some absolutely huge trouble and you need help. Well, you have it with Vance Hines customer support. They make this thing super easy to get in touch with them and figure out what possibly went wrong if you get into that position. So what you can do here is upload your map. You can email them right from this, and it will even call for you. You can just simply hit a button and you're going to get a Vance Hines rep on the phone helping you repair your map or perhaps build you a custom one. Let's say perhaps you didn't have a 1200 Sportster. Let's say you've thrown a big bore kit on there. Well, they'll custom make you a map. All you have to do is get in touch with them, and very quickly they're going to have you set to fly. So you can email them too, and when you email them from the app here, it's also going to attach a copy of your map. So a tech can look at exactly what's going on and make sure they can tailor things exactly to your bike. One of the other cool things here too is you'll notice that you can actually turn on streaming function. When you turn this on, what it allows your bike to do is speak directly to a waiting Vance Hines rep. So if you've wind up borking a map or you really foul something up, these guys can actually look at your bike and how it's running real time and see what it is that you broke and help you repair it. I don't think most of you are going to need that though. 99.8% of people should be just fine with all of the goodies that Vance Hines cooked right into the FP3. So I hope you guys have figured out that I feel very comfortable with this thing. Those of you who have read any of my articles or perhaps watched other videos know that I'm a carburetor guy through and through, and I was scared to get into this thing, but it was so easy. This really is very simple to use. It's super intuitive. If you're jonesing for a little bit more info, check out our FP3 product video if you need a little bit more information, where we really broke this thing down and got into some of the nitty-gritty details. If you've gotten in trouble with your FP3 and need some help, or if you're still not convinced this is right for you, get in touch with one of our gear geeks. See us at RevZilla.com. You can always give us a call, 877-792-9455. I'm Lemmy. I'm out of here.